Welcome to the very first episode of the Persistence Project, where we talk all things strength training, from mindset to max effort. I'm your host, Rob Allen, and I am a strength coach and a multiplier powerlifter. And when I first got into lifting, and subsequently when I became a coach, one of the best tools I had in my arsenal was to learn from others around me who are further along and are better than me. So I wanted to start this podcast to use it as a tool for you as the listener to learn from others and hopefully make your lifting better. This podcast is proudly brought to you by my friends over at Jacked and Juiced Apparel, who have been supporting strength sports at a grassroots level for years now. And when I first asked them if they wanted to support this podcast, they jumped on without hesitation. So I thank them very much for their support, and welcome to the first episode. So my guest today is Leroy Scott. Leroy is the co-owner, along with his wife Chrissy, of Hunter Strength and Performance in Beresfield, which is also where I work. He's an accomplished strength athlete, having competed in powerlifting for 8 years in both raw and equipped divisions, with the best raw total of 772.5 in the 120 kilo class. He's competed in strongman and bodybuilding as well. He's a coach of many elite powerlifters, including many national champions, national and world record holders. He's also the New South Wales State delegate for GPC Australia, and Leroy has been a great mentor to me over the last couple of years, and someone I consider a good friend. So Leroy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So where I wanted to start off was right back at the beginning, and I want to see how you got into coaching, but how that started off for you from a perspective of getting into strength training. So where did you get into strength training and why?
I got into strength training because when I was younger, I played rugby league, and I wanted to better myself, and always had a mindset of being better than what I actually was.
Yep.
So I started strength training to complement my rugby league training, and that's where it sort of took off. Then I joined the Defence Force. So I was in the Navy for 7 years. Sort of kept training then, up and down. Still strength training because I enjoyed that. I don't like running too much. Yeah. So I went down that route. Discharged from defence medically with a back issue. And then just through all my rehab and everything and researching myself, again, wanted to better myself. Then I got into the point of like, okay, I need to do some sort of strength training, but structured better. And a more static style of training to start off with.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that where you came to find powerlifting?
Yeah, sort of. I'd drop a bit of weight first because I packed on heaps. So body fat levels were super high.
From the injury?
From injury and lack of movement, really.
Yep.
A bit of a depressive state in there too. And, I ate myself and and didn't really move. Yeah, so packed it on. So I dropped some body fat first, quite a bit. I think that was the first time I did a big weight cut.
Yep.
Yeah. I dropped, what did I end up dropping? 10 kilos in like 12 weeks.
Yep. Right.
Yeah. So I pushed it a bit.
Yep.
So I dropped that down, and then I started on the strength journey. So I got my body in a better position to start.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. And so then through that strength training, when did you first start competing?
Started competing in 2014.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so 2014 started. So that's now 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Open powerlifting told me 8.
Yeah, that's when I would have been sanctioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you did a couple of novice comps first.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Were you strong to begin with?
At the time, yeah. When you start looking at the numbers now, not so much, but at the time, I was fair up there. So my first novice comp, I squatted 230. Raw reps. I think I benched 130, I believe, around that.
Yep.
And pulled 240 as well, I think.
Yep. So decently strong.
Yeah.
What body weight were you at that?
Would have been 96 kilos.
Yeah.
Yeah, thereabouts.
And so you'd come down from over
110 I was, down to 96. Yeah.
But largely fat.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then so you started competing in 2014.
Yeah.
16 you did your first novice sanction comps.
Yeah.
And what led you to get into competing in sanction? Just the natural progression from doing novice comps and
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, I don't like sitting. I like for me, I believe novice comps are like they get a feeling of the sport.
Yep.
See how it is and then step it up. So I think I did 2 novice comps. In powerlifting, took a little bit of time away from powerlifting because I did some strongman stuff.
Yep.
So I competed in some strongman, and I just love the competitive side. Strongman sort of got me because I'm real short. Yeah. So there was a certain point where, because my body weight was getting up to, so I was up around the 105 kilo mark, and then those sort of weights and my height and certain events didn't work. So then when I moved into powerlifting full time.
Yeah. Okay. It's funny about one of the big differences between strongman and powerlifting is that height is not a disadvantage in powerlifting.
Yeah.
Very much a disadvantage in strongman.
Yeah.
Sometimes it works to your favor in powerlifting because you can have a much better, like you have a very short range of motion on the bench press.
Yeah. Yeah.
So which is to a great advantage, and probably a testament to some of your strength.
Yeah.
In the upper body.
Yeah, definitely.
Naturally. Okay, so in 2016 you competed in your first sanctioned meets.
Yeah.
How'd you go in those?
Pretty good. I can't remember what I placed. I think it was Sydney Cup was the first one I did.
Yep.
Back then, I think I squatted to. I squatted 260, maybe 250, 260.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Not bad for a first sanctioned meet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was it love at first sight with powerlifting when you started competing?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yeah. So the environment is what I thrived on. You know, when you turn up to a comp day and you got 60 lifters competing and there's all the people supporting and everyone gets behind everyone, even if you don't know them. That's sort of what I loved about it.
Yeah. Very similar. I knew I wanted to powerlift before I started competing, but when I first competed, it was that energy and that. I actually went to a Powerlifting Australia meet. It was the first ever meet that I went to, and I was like, this is boring.
Yeah.
I was so bored and so uninspired by powerlifting. When I left there, I was like, I didn't want to quit powerlifting.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to do Powerlifting Australia. And it's no diss to anyone who chooses that route, although it's a bit questionable these days to stay in Powerlifting Australia. But
yeah,
it was definitely love at first sight. So I can empathise with that feeling. And so when did you start coaching?
Probably started coaching maybe around that, like specifically for powerlifting. I started coaching not long after that, after my first sanction meet.
Yep.
I was coaching before, like doing some PT work.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, beforehand. I had a few people that did some strength side of it and did some powerlifting side, but not competed yet. And then I transitioned over not long after that.
Yep. So if you were PTing before you were competing in powerlifting, what did that kind of transition look like from being someone who just trained predominantly for strength because you enjoyed it and particularly from rugby days, but what made you want to get into being someone who taught other people how to do that?
How to powerlift?
No, just coach in general before you coached. When you were just PTing, what was the kind of initiation to wanting to PT for people?
How to help people. I saw a big part that was sort of missing. At that stage, it's a lot better now in the industry than what it was back then, where people actually wanted, like PTs wanted to help people and make them reach their goals, not just set out a certain, cookie cutter program that everyone sort of got, and you go find it in your file at the gym. Yeah.
So it was the drive to help people that And has that been something that you found through strength training, or was it something that you always wanted to do, given that you joined the Defence Force? You kind of service is obviously somewhat important.
Yeah, I think it's just in me.
Yeah.
Yeah, to help people.
Yeah. And so when you played rugby, did you play that at a pretty high level?
Yeah, fairly high. Not crazy high, but
And you joined the Navy pretty like right at
17, yeah.
At
17, yeah.
So you played rugby for a few years and then went straight into the military.
Yeah, so I played rugby from like young kid.
Yeah.
Right up till I joined. And then when I joined, I played league when I first joined for the base there, and did a few little things where we travelled and done stuff. And then we changed over. I changed over to Union and played some Union for a couple of years, and then once you're out in the fleet, that's sort of it.
I'm probably going to lose viewers from saying this, but I'm Victorian, so I know nothing about rugby at all. You throw the ball and run with it.
Yeah.
I did live in Queensland for a little bit of time and played it just at school, but I don't know the difference between league and union. So I'm like, okay, that's good. I'm sure people listening would be like, yeah, I understand, and that Victorian guy can get fucked.
Yeah.
So when you played team sports,
did
you feel like team sports filled that kind of need to help people?
Yeah. Always strive to be better in them.
Yeah.
And then, try to lead by example and try to be a leader of the team, like the senior players that you see in any sort of sporting team.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at that top level, that's sort of I tried to be that senior player in the team.
Sure. And so when you started powerlifting, because powerlifting obviously is an individual sport, but a big aspect that is probably overlooked is that it really is a team sport, individually acted out. And that's quite obvious, having like me knowing how the gym works and your athletes is quite a team environment. Is that something that you deliberately tried to cultivate once you started coaching powerlifting?
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely. You've seen it at comps and stuff, how, especially how much, say, my team specifically come together.
Yeah.
It's not uncommon for me to have 8 athletes competing at a top level at one comp. So to try and get people to on the platform in time, get them on the platform in time and have their knees wrapped and that in time takes a team to get there. It's not just me. I can't do that by myself.
Yeah, and one that's very evident when you watch, if you've ever been in a meet where you've got multiple lifters, that it is people are self-sufficient. They're also got people they can rely on beyond you, and it's very evident that it's a team environment, particularly at a high level like at Nationals or Pro Raw, for example. You can see that.
Yeah, I try and encourage them to make them self-sufficient as well. Yeah. I think that's another thing that's sort of lost is with powerlifting coaches, they're not self-sufficient.
Yep.
They don't teach the athletes to be self-sufficient. They teach them to be reliant. I know my guys, they can go and turn up to a session and finish it off, and if something doesn't quite go to plan, they know what to do because I've taught them over their time what to do.
Yeah. I think that's a very crucial point with being a coach is you teach your athlete how to coach themselves.
Yeah, well, I think people forget what a coach is.
Yeah.
The coaches forget what a natural coach is, and that's to teach people.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're a trainer.
That's it. You're not a rah-rah cheerleader that controls all the variables. You're like someone who manipulates the variables to get the better outcome. So, and that then in turn lies on the athlete to be able to hone those skills and those variables themselves. So, there's nothing worse than a client that can't give you feedback because they don't know how something felt or how it moved or what the next jump should be. They need you for every what should I do? It's like at the beginning that's fine, but you should teach them how to
that's right,
how to build that. So it's interesting to see you come from a team sport environment and knowing a few people that have come from team sport environments into powerlifting seem to be big on cultivating a team around them. Like I never played team sport really. I played basketball, but not very seriously. I had bad knees. When I came into powerlifting as an individual sport, one of the things I craved was a team, and living in the town that I did, I never really had that. So one of the best things about making the move up here is that we have a team now and you can rely on people. There's people I know that I can go, hey, can you be at this session because I need help, and they'll always be there and vice versa. So that's a really good thing to cultivate. When you started coaching powerlifting soon after your first meet, which has now become a meme that I joked about when I did the Polaris podcast here, is that you do one meet and you're a coach.
Yeah.
I was very similar.
Yeah.
I actually was a coach before I had done one meet.
Yeah.
But that was with a guinea pig client, so it's a little bit, it's trial and error. So I won't say I was offering my services for compensation before I'd actually competed. But when you started competing and then coaching, how long did it take to cultivate that team?
It's actually pretty quick.
Yep.
I was pretty lucky in the way that, like, as a PT, I had full books.
Right.
Yeah, as a PT. I started into, like, putting out that I wanted some powerlifting clients, and this is what I was going to do. And I started bringing them in, so I started cutting away the Gen Pop PT.
Yep.
And then there was a point where I'm like, this is taking up too much time, and to get into programming, that it's like, now it's like stepping up. So I cut away all of my Gen Pop clients, except for a few that sort of, you know, I couldn't really let go because, you know, you become pretty close to them, and, you know, they have this thing with you that it's just that you build that relationship that, you know, you don't want to let go. Yeah. I don't know how else to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. You're invested in them.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
yeah. And you want to see them get better, and you've seen them progress so far that you want to see them keep going. So there's a few that I kept that way. But not many, I think 3 in total. Right. That I kept here.
And do you still coach them now?
Yeah. Yeah. I still do. Yeah. 10 years later.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, so we got that. And then so I cut everyone away, and I ended up with, I think I started back with 12 clients after that, after having a full thing. I was like, this is the minimum I can live with.
Yep.
Cut it down to that.
Which is a substantial starting point.
Yeah.
Like you said, you kind of got lucky. It was like the right.
It was the right time. Definitely the right time.
Because you're filling a void that didn't exist here in Hunter.
Yeah, and there was nothing in the Hunter Valley that did it. Yeah. So that was huge. That it just took off.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then from there it just grew from there.
Yeah.
Filled my books out pretty quick,
and so how's that changed over time? Have you seen it move away from being, like, obviously the team aspect still exists, particularly within your group of athletes, but in general, from starting powerlifting to now, have you seen that kind of change
with my team,
with your team, and in general, like in the wider kind of powerlifting community?
Yeah. There are certain parts, and you sort of get to know who your team, like who the teams are that are going around, but then there's a lot more individual lifters now, than what there was really before. But I don't know whether that's just because powerlifting's become more mainstream, like a more mainstream style of training, and people are giving it more of a go, that's happening.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, once upon a time, you had to seek it out and
that's right,
and go to the gym and find the people and do all that. And
now social media puts it in your face. If you're into any sort of strength training, you're going to see some sort of powerlifting there.
Yeah. So, and have you seen that with in your own team change a bit, or has it stayed pretty consistent?
Oh, there's a little bit where it changes, and you've got to bring them back in and remind people that they have to work together.
Yeah.
You know, because if you want them there on comp day to help you when you need it the most,
you need to help them.
Yeah. That's right.
It's a give and take.
Yeah.
That's for sure. You see that often with I watch a lot of other lifters compete, particularly high level. They have a lot of people, and it's not necessarily anyone I know, but you watch them, particularly Americans, and you can see that they've got a big crew around them.
Yeah.
You wonder if that's reciprocated.
Yeah.
And someone I look at who does that a lot is Dan Bell.
Yep.
You see him at lots of meets, particularly because he trains with a bunch of equip lifters. So he's always at their meets helping them set their gear and calling their depth and stuff like that. And he's like the best in the world. So
yes, that's right.
He's a really good example of how it should be done.
That's right. A big example.
Yeah. Yeah. So in that period of time, 10 years is a long time in any sport.
Yeah.
But a sport that wears you down like it does.
Yeah.
Like powerlifting. How have you gone staying injury free? I know personally that you're not injury free, but you've injured yourself. What has that looked like, and what has it taught you about training?
So I guess when I first started, there wasn't as much information now about rehab. it was out there, but it wasn't as easily readable. You couldn't find it very well.
Yep.
So things like getting through sessions with squatter's elbow, you just push through it. There was times where I'd wrap my knees, and I'd unwrap them, and I'd be holding my arms up so they didn't hurt. Or somebody was rolling my wraps for me to get back in and get on another set.
Yeah.
Now that's changed a lot. There's a lot more information coming out about that.
Yep.
So, I suppose everyone sort of goes through some sort of tendonitis issues when they get into powerlifting at some stage.
Yep.
Yeah. If you haven't, it's coming.
It's coming.
But generally, haven't been too bad. I've torn both my quads.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've had surgery on my shoulder. My clavicle was dying. I've torn a pec twice.
Yep.
Yeah. But other than that, it's, like I have knee issues and that sort of stuff, but that sort of comes from the quad tears.
Yep. And do you find that something I find through going through small injuries and significant injuries that pull you back out of the sport for a minute, do you find that then gives you an opportunity to grow your knowledge around movement?
Definitely.
So Brian Carroll and Stuart McGill have that book, The Gift of Injury.
Yeah.
I always think of that whenever I get hurt. Just the phrase. Like, I haven't actually read the book. I've read parts of it. Certainly listened to a lot of their work, but just the title of the book. So anytime I get hurt, I'm like, this is an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
And that's been a really useful tool, unfortunately, because you don't want to be that person that just bangs themselves up so they can teach others. But it's turning that negative experience into a positive one. I think one thing that's helped me learn is going through injury.
Yeah.
And like we've talked about it at work, if I'm dealing with an injury, I'm like, oh, this is what I'm dealing with, and this is what I'm thinking of doing. I'll run it past you, or I'll run it past my coach, and you have, it then starts conversations you wouldn't necessarily have.
Definitely, yeah.
Do you feel like that dealing with such high level lifters, has that been a thing that has come up a lot? Because you're going to see injuries at a high level. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it just drives you to be, that's what I think is better as a coach, like you got to learn, you got to continue learning. Yeah, I haven't stopped learning, and I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll never know it all. Yeah, if you close yourself off to learning, you're closing yourself off.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. You're just like, you might as well not do it anymore because there's so much to learn. There's so much you can go through. Yeah.
It's one of those things that the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah, anything. That's right.
It's like, I know all this stuff, but then there's this vast expanse of knowledge that I'll never know. But I'm going to try and learn it all.
Yeah. I work with my physio, and this is a big one that comes from that we were talking about. Where, and it's probably been because of my shoulder. Chris has got some shoulder issues too.
Yep.
Yeah. And working with that, one of the things that he said, because he was at Nationals and he was there treating people like just as, getting them through. He saw nobody from our gym with shoulder or rotator cuff issues.
Yep.
Yeah. But the majority of their work that had come onto that table was shoulder and rotator cuff issues.
Yep.
Yeah. But none of them come from our gym.
Yeah, that's good.
So is that something that, us as coaches are learning and, teaching each other different things that now this isn't an issue at our gym?
Yeah. Yeah, there's always going to be things, particularly when in powerlifting, it's 3 lifts. And if you do it enough, you're going to get repetitive use, injuries. Rotator cuffs are a big one.
Yeah.
Pecs, strains and tears and all that's another big one. Tendonitis at the elbows and quad tendinopathy.
Yep.
Really common things, glute issues, hip issues. You're going to see it. I think a lot of coaches are scared of their people getting injured. I know that I'm terrified that my people are going to get injured, but also at the same time, when they get injured, it's not to be terrified of the fact that they're injured and go, okay.
Yeah.
This is like, maybe you're not injured, you just hurt. It's just the difference.
Your body's hurting.
Yeah.
Because you're halfway through a prep. And
yeah. Or it's like, we need to find this way around that. Do you find that that's a really hard thing to teach people, or have you had good experiences with that?
Probably with my athletes now, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the athletes that I've had now are in that higher intermediate to elite level.
Yep.
But teaching like the ones that are underneath that, like that lower intermediate beginners, trying to get their head around,
Dealing with the injury.
Yeah, you deal with the injury, you can still keep working, you can still do stuff. You just got to work around it and do a certain set of exercises or stretches or mobility rehab work.
Yeah.
For a period of time, and you're not actually going to lose all your strength.
Yeah.
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 It'll come back pretty quick.
Yeah. You can pull back on this or work non-specific movements. You still come back to the squat, and you haven't squatted for 6 to 8 weeks, 12 weeks even.
Yeah, well,
it's as strong.
Yeah, we have perfect examples of that with Jaden.
Yep.
When he tore his quad coming into Pro Raw, was that 3 or 4 weeks out from Pro Raw?
Yep.
Yeah, he couldn't squat. Yeah. He went 285 at Pro Raw, missed his 300. He had a 315 squat at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like he didn't lose too much, but he was still dealing with the quad tear. His quad was still like measuring bigger at Pro Raw from the tear and inflammation.
Yeah.
And then he comes back at Nationals, which is 4 months later,
right?
5 months later. And he went for a 330 squat, which was all-time record squat. He missed it on depth, but,
he got it on strength.
He got it, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, that's how I remember back spotting him during that prep for Pro Raw and catching him with 250 because he had no power at all. Which he then said, "Thank you for saving my life."
Yeah.
But yeah, he came out of the bottom and he just had no power in the quads. But then, fast forward 6 months later, that's not an issue.
That's right.
You can work around it and with it.
That's right.
And get them stronger. And I think that a lot of people fear tearing something. And when you think about what we're doing in the sport that we're in, you get like it's inevitable that something's going to hurt or tear. You're not going to escape injury free. You're going to try to.
Yeah.
But something's going to hurt. And, worst come to worst, you might tear something.
Yeah.
But tears exist on a spectrum.
That's right.
And
if you get a grade 1 tear,
yeah,
and that's what you sort of aim for with all your training. If you don't aim for a tear, obviously, but if you're going to get something, you want the minimal injury possible if it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So you got to reduce your risk as much as possible.
Yeah, I think for me as a young coach, I was just like young relative to coaching age, not actual age, because I'm not young. That like I always feared injuring people, so I would be scared of it, and then, like I was just saying, it's like you try not to do it.
Yeah.
But one of the better things I think I found as a coach is having people present with issues that maybe not be an injury, but it's an issue.
Yep.
That like we were just speaking back to come back around to that is that it gave me an opportunity to learn how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great when I've dealt with it myself. Like I've got clients that have disc issues and I've had disc issues. I've got clients with knee problems and I've had knee problems. Like that's easy because I've dealt with it already. So
yes.
Like I've got all these tools. But when it's someone that I don't have the tools for, it presents an opportunity to learn how to fix it. It's like, I don't actually know how to fix this. And that's actually a sign of maturity as a coach, I think.
Definitely is.
To go, not sure what we do here.
Yeah.
Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big part of too, I guess, why you got to have, the team just doesn't relate to, when we're talking about team, it doesn't just relate to, who's there at the gym, who you train with.
Yeah.
It relates to your allied health professionals, your massage therapists, your nutrition, everything that comes into play, and that's a perfect example where a physiotherapist or a massage therapist can come in handy as part of your team.
Yeah.
And arsenal, and then that can relay back to you, and then you can work out from there where you go.
Yeah. That's a great thing, I think, in the progression of the sport, getting bigger, a lot more massage and physio and chiropractic practitioners actually know what powerlifting is, for one. They're not just going to tell you to rest. Like if you go and see a doctor and they're like, oh, no, you just need to not lift heavy weights.
Yeah.
So, no, I actually need to lift. What is coming out now is like how to get through an injury is often to keep lifting through it. It's just changing the stimulus and working with the injury.
That's right. Not
against it. And a great thing about Hunter Strength is that you have cultivated that with Exceed Health and with Hunter Performance Physio, and we've got nutritionists on site and nutritionists that we recommend. The team is when people come into our gym and become a part of the wider team, not just yours or mine.
Yeah.
It's actually, you've got access to all these things.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm dealing with this issue, and it's like, okay, I know the best person for that.
Yeah.
Go and see them, and they work with us. And I just had this conversation on the weekend with Tim from Hunter Performance.
Yeah.
Physio. One of my clients been dealing with a hip issue from a weak glute that meant that her hip was internally rotating and getting pain. So she went and saw him and had terrible range of motion and mobility. And then he sent her back to me and messaged me and said, this is what we're doing. This is what we're dealing with. You need to work on this. Didn't tell me what to do. Just said, you need to work on this. He trusted that I know what I'm doing as a coach.
Yep.
And then the next time she went, he sent me a message, said, you've done great work with her. Whatever you're doing has improved immensely. And has said that numerous times to me, which I'm just, well, thank you. Like, that makes me feel confident in my pursuit. But it's that reciprocal relationship that's
exactly right. Yeah.
It's not just the physio goes, okay, this is what you do. They can prescribe exercises, sure, but it has to be collaborative within the goals of the client and within the time frame that they're in. So I know one thing that is important to your guys is like if they're going to go and get dry needling or massage done close to a comp in a peak, that's a specific amount of work that they need done.
Yeah.
And so those people know how much to take out of the muscle and not to take all the tension out.
Yeah, that's right.
So very important.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. And how do you, so from 10 years ago to now, what are the main differences you see? Because you've been in GPC, as I said at the start, you're the state delegate now for New South Wales. And you've been pretty much competing GPC the whole time?
Yeah, I did some, a couple of capo comps.
Yep.
That's sort of it, in pro rule.
Yep. But largely within GPC, what has changed in that 10 years that you've most significantly? I'm sure there's a lot, but...
Yeah. Well, for me at the moment, it's like a lot of our older lifters when I started, they're all sort of dropping away now.
Yeah.
You know, that's one big thing. There's a whole new cohort of newer lifters coming through, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
The level of lifting is going through the roof. Yeah. And that comes down to, I think, coaches are getting better. They're learning that you need to learn.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know it all, and it's not just this one stock standard approach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not saying that all coaches are like that, but there's a lot more that are starting to learn that.
Yeah, and I guess that largely comes down to the pool's increasing.
That's right. It has to,
There's more genetic potential there's more people in the sport, and that also applies to coaches. There's more brain power.
That's right.
Lots of different people are coaches now.
Social media is a bit bigger now too, or it's heaps bigger now than when I first started, like 10 years ago, social media compared to now.
Yep.
You know, so being able to bounce ideas or learn from other coaches as well and what they learn, and they don't need to be at your gym, or around you, or where you see them in a meet, you can learn from someone on the other side of the country.
Yeah. It's probably, like I said in the intro, that's one of the best things I've found to grow as an athlete and a coach is to be able to talk to other people, particularly as a multiplier lifter, talking to other people about how do you do this and how do you set your shirt and what do you do with, like, I'm not just relying on my coach who's a wealth of knowledge,
but
I'm also asking everyone, like it's a very small pool of multiplier lifters.
It is, yeah.
We all talk to each other and we're all asking for help, and I think that's probably the best thing about the sport in general, powerlifting, whether it's raw or equipped, is that no one really gatekeeps information.
No.
Everyone wants you to get better, and coaches are pretty open books. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons I wanted to start this podcast was to showcase that. It's like people, there's a million different approaches. They might look similar, but they're going to be a fair bit different. But most people aren't like, oh no, it's my special.
Yeah, that's right.
It's my special thing that I can't share with anyone. It's actually, we want everyone to get better. So to lead into that, what does your programming and kind of general philosophy around periodization look like?
Mine's sort of my own like at different stages. People go through different, so different level lifters go through different programming. Like, so my elite guys, they have to undulate. Yeah, they just can't be pumping out heavy squats every week, heavy deads every week.
Yep.
You know, so they've got to move them around, and work with their body and listen, get feedback, and know when we can push and know when we can pull back and make it work.
Yep.
Intermediates, I push them, the low end intermediate. Yeah, I push them pretty hard. I have quite a few, and beginners too. Like I ease the beginners in a little bit. It's still hard for them because they're beginners.
Yep.
But it's pretty easy, and then it steps up.
Yep.
And I've had Kalina. She's I coached her for years. And she squatted 285 at Nationals in Perth.
Yep.
And she used to tell people all the time that first 12 weeks is going to kill you. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's told me that too.
Yeah.
Not that you, she's told, like, multiple people that are coached by you have told me that initial block of work to build the base is brutal.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but it also, for me, that weeds out the people that, that I want and the people that I don't want. I want people that are, I guess, a bit more like myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that push and want to better themselves. You're not going to better yourselves doing the same crap over and over.
Yeah. And so how's that changed from when you started? What did it look like when you started coaching powerlifting? Did you follow like a pretty Western periodization model, linear or?
Yeah, pretty linear at the start.
Yep.
And that's sort of how I keep it with my beginners.
Yep.
Yeah, just keep it simple. Yeah, they understand it a bit better.
Yep.
It's an easy way to teach.
Jeez.
Yeah, teach what's going on to your lifters, so then when you start making changes, they understand.
Yeah.
And it's easier to go, this is what we've got to do now, this is what we've got to change, and these are the reasons why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed from looking from the outside in on your programming, because I've never sat down and looked at a program, and I watch what everyone does because I watch everybody's programming. I'm really interested in that. So I'll watch yours, I'll watch Nick's and Josh's, and like, oh, that's really interesting. Like, and we can talk about it at the gym. We've got a good relationship with all our coaches. Like, oh, why are you doing this? And it's not like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, why would you ask me that? I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. It's
no,
like,
we're trying to learn off each other.
Yeah. It's like, I'm interested. Why are you doing that? One thing I've noticed with your guys is that it is undulating, but it's also very reactive almost.
Yes.
So there's a plan, but the plan is determined by...
Plan's fluid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not stocked, it's not standard, yeah?
Yeah.
You can work off percentages, you can work off RPE, you can, however you want to work it.
Yeah.
Yeah. My plan is work based off percentages, generally.
Yep.
Yeah, for their main work. But sometimes that plan needs to change. Sometimes it's not always just going to be, roses and everything goes just nice and smooth.
Yeah.
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 Life stresses come up. We work in an area where it's mining. Yeah, shift work.
Yep.
Some people have a terrible time going from transitioning from, your day shift to your night shift. Yeah, some people they're terrible coming off night shift. So you got to be able to make it work and change.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I'd like. Coming from Victoria, in not a mining area, I came from a dairy predominant, and not many night shift. There's a couple of factories that did it, but it's not so prevalent down there as it is here. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's been something I've had to adjust into my programming. It's taken a little bit of time to figure it out. It's like, my programming is generally pretty fluid too.
Yeah.
But yeah, figuring out people's schedules, understanding what a full panel is, like, I don't know any of that stuff.
You have to understand all the different rosters that they've got around here.
Yep. So, and it takes a lot to figure that stuff out. So, when do you feel like you kind of hit your stride as being the coach you are now?
Yeah.
When did you stop feeling like you were a beginner coach?
I still do.
Yeah.
I don't think, I think if you put yourself right up there, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. You still got to have belief in yourself, and you still got to have confidence in yourself and confidence in your coaching, which I am. Yeah. But there's still so much to learn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then I think that's the part that, sort of gets down. But, I guess sort of just before COVID, so 2019 was probably the year of competing.
Yeah.
Because we all got shut down in 2020. That was probably the year where I was like, right, now my lifters are like, there's quite a few of them that are getting up there and into that.
So it took that kind of tactile kind of, my lifters are high level. I must be doing something.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before that, were you kind of just like, fuck, I don't know anything? Like, I don't know if
Yeah.
this is going to work. I don't know
Yeah,
if that's
and-
going to work.
Yeah, and I think that's part of, like, I was confident in what I was giving out.
Yeah.
Without doubt. But it's more that, like, knowing where you sort of sit and where you're at, I guess, is sort of, you know, that was sort of a measure for me.
Yeah. I remember saying to you before I came over to Beresfield to coach, we were in Dubbo at a competition having dinner, and there was a conversation that we're having that was you, my coach Will, and Dave Tran Kong from Geelong,
Yep.
where we were all discussing coaching apps. Oh, and DMAC as well, Dylan from Mudgee,
Yeah.
when he was still coaching, and we were all talking about coaching stuff. And that was a moment for me where I was like, and I'm pretty sure I've said this to you before, is like, I don't feel like an imposter anymore.
Yeah.
Like when I first moved up to New South Wales, like I was confident I was good
Yeah.
at it. But like, again, I don't know everything. There's so much to know.
Yeah.
But when I got up here and I started coaching people stronger than me, and which I'd not done previously,
Yep.
I was like, oh shit. It was like this
Yeah.
imposter syndrome.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was very like palpable. Like I had to have like confide in people around me. I'm like, I feel like an imposter.
Yeah.
Like I even talked to my own coach about it, and I'm just like, I feel very unsure of everything. He's like, yeah, but you're always going to feel unsure.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
Yeah.
you just have to trust that you've got enough of a brain to figure out where to go. And
Yeah.
then I think it was that conversation when we were sitting around that table where we were talking about some specifics around programming and just silly coach talk.
Yep.
About the minutiae of training.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know we're kind of on similar levels. Like we're not all at the same level for sure. But I'm like, hey, these guys are like, you're not so far ahead that I feel like an imposter anymore. Yep. So that's a really cool feeling to have. But it is like there is this little voice is like, is this going to work?
That little voice though is what drives you to be better.
Yeah.
That's what I believe.
Yep.
Yeah. If that little voice sits there and it makes you learn and want to learn more.
Yep.
You know, it's when that voice disappears that you got to be scared.
Yeah. Well, if you rested on your laurels as a coach or an athlete as a lifter, you start going,
yeah,
top of the mountain here. You know, it's like, well, no.
That's right.
There's no top of the mountain.
No, that's right.
The top of the mountain is an endless pursuit of betterness that you can't really ever get to. So programming wise, you undulate in your periodization.
Yeah.
Do you have blocks? Do you follow a block kind of model?
Somewhat.
Yep.
Yeah. Depending on how long those blocks depend on where that lift is at.
Yep.
And what we're working on.
Yep.
So it's not like a set 4-week block or set 6-week block.
Sure.
Yeah. Some people's blocks may go for 12 weeks. Yeah. We work through that, and we'll have deloads and we'll change things around a little bit and move things around. But sometimes that's where it can be because we're working on a specific thing. Yeah.
Sure.
So it's got to work. So Max is a perfect example. We look at his off season.
Yep.
Yeah. After Nationals, and now he's leading into Pro Raw. Yeah. Part of it was trying to fix his squat position. Yeah. So I put him on, I don't know, what's Josh Sampson call his new bar that he's got?
I don't know. He calls it something funny, but it's basically a transformer.
Yeah, basically a transform bar. Yeah. So we put Maxie on that, and we had a certain setting to, challenge his squat.
Mm-hmm.
Max has got a huge squat, as we know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's squatted 390 the other day.
390 the other day, yeah. Pretty comfortably.
Yep.
Yeah, so we sort of challenged his squat. Yeah. We challenged it that much to not squat over 200 kilos with that bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was doing rep work. Yeah. He was also wrapped.
Yeah.
Towards the end, and he still didn't get over 200 kicks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it pushed him.
Yeah.
Yeah. We transition over, and we go through that transition period, building that stop hand strength with his straight bar again, and start moving into his peak.
It's working.
And it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was a good 3 month, that was a good 12 weeks stint.
Yeah.
Of pushing that.
And how confident were you when you started that it was going to pay off?
I was fairly confident
because
of the way, after first session, because of the way it pushed his position.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's where I want you to sit in your squat.
Yeah.
That's where you need to sit in your squat to make it stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was that's when I was become confident.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that didn't sort of work, we would have changed things up and got him into that.
Yeah. So for those who might not know what a transformer bar is, an SSB safety squat bar that has interchangeable loading criteria of the camber.
Yeah.
So it can be from anywhere from, I think that bar goes as far as front squat.
Goblet squat, I think the first, isn't it?
Yeah, goblet squat, front squat, high bar,
There's
low
safety bar in there too.
Safety bar, yeah. Low bar and hinge, it's got like 7 settings, and then the camber is adjustable.
Does 1 to 4.
Yeah. So it really you can put it in some very awkward positions to challenge people's squats. So, and that's something, observing how you build people's weaknesses is something that I connect with very strongly, because as a conjugate biased coach, not that I only coach that way, like you, my beginners are pretty linear periodized. But my bias is conjugate, but I think that it largely falls on an approach of how I attack what they need.
Yes.
And you do something quite similar.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is what we need, so we're going to use this tool to build it. And that tool is not a straight bar squat.
That's right.
It's a similar thing, but it's not the thing.
Yeah.
And so watching how your guys are programmed and what they're doing, I find correlations there that...
Oh, definitely. It's because I take on from, like we talk about learning, Conjugate's not really the style that I'd like to go down training, coaching-wise, down that route, But why isn't there aspects of that style of training that you can't take on, that you can move into another? And that is one of them. One of their big things is working around weaknesses, like working weaknesses and building them and strengthening it up, because it's going to make that, come out the other end.
And if you can, I think having that eye as a coach is very
definitely
useful. Like, it doesn't mean you have to follow a method to a doctrine level. It's not a set in stone kind of thing. It's like, well, this is what I think your squat needs.
Yes.
So we're going to use this to build it. I had this conversation with one of my strongman athletes the other day. He's just had not a moment of realization, but he's realized recently that what I'm doing to build his strongman performance is not like everybody else's.
Yeah.
And he's like, but I'm seeing how that now builds these movements. He's like, he was doing incline axle bar bench.
Yep.
And he's like, I'm seeing how like my dumbbell work's building this. And I said, yeah, and that is building your overhead.
Yes.
Out here, it's building aspects of your overhead press out here. And you watch a lot of people, powerlifters do it all the time. Strongmen are notorious for it. They train events constantly and don't build a base around that.
Yeah.
Something I think is really important is building up the base strength that you need for those events. So squat, bench and deadlift is the same. You're not going to just squat, bench and deadlift. I think something that's grown popularity lately is high frequency training.
Yeah.
Do you look at stuff like that and just go, this stuff I can learn, or does it frustrate you?
Some of it you can learn from it.
Yeah.
A lot of it frustrates me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look at some of the higher and I'm hopefully going to have a guest on here soon that is a coach who does real high frequency SPD work, that I'm really interested in it.
Yeah.
But I also look at it from a repetitive movement standpoint and go, it's just injuries waiting to happen. So how are they mitigating injuries?
Yes.
And for the way I program, and similarly how you program, we mitigate injuries by bolstering weakness and weak movement patterns, like single leg work and single arm work and dumbbells where you have to...
Yeah, well, the amount of work our guys do generally in accessory movements is a lot more than what I see a lot of other people.
Yeah.
When you're peaking, obviously, they get brought down because your fatigue levels come down, you're honing your skills in on your lifts.
Yep.
So they've got to come down to allow for the fatigue levels and that sort of stuff that come in. But like, why can't they do more? If you're bringing other things down, like your main movements down, and you're building through that, why can't you do more accessory work and strengthen up everywhere that's weak? Yeah.
One thing I've always done is looked at, and I think this comes from Louis Simmons.
Yeah.
Probably, is that training volume is a pyramid.
Yes.
Where your intensity is at the top, and that point of the pyramid is also the volume. So as the intensity broadens, the volume increases.
Yes.
So it's my general programming principle is like your intense work at the start is very low volume, and then it grows.
Yeah.
So your middle accessories are higher volume, higher intensity, and then lower intensity at the bottom, high volume.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon to see my guys doing hundreds of reps on stuff at the bottom. And similarly, you follow a similar principle.
Definitely.
But there's more than one way to skin a cat.
That's right.
I think that's the best thing about strength training.
It is, yeah, that's right.
I think a lot of people fall into, especially now that they're seeing lots of IPF lifters do high frequencies. Like it's just SBD. We just build that through that. It's like how many other sports build their sport performance through just doing the sport? You don't play football and just play football.
Yeah.
Maybe when you're a kid you do.
One of my big things is like when you do like say a heavy squat session with these high frequency ones, this is the part that would be interesting talking to somebody that does that.
Mm-hmm.
Like how do your top end people, so if we put this, like say if we take Max or Jaden, Paris even for that example, and they've just done a heavy squat, take Max's in pro roll heavy squat 390, all his warm up work to get there, everything to get there, that's a massive amount of work, Now I'm going to get him lie down and bench, which is another one they do where they put their squat and bench together. Yeah. Like I understand some parts of it, maybe in a peak, trying to get him ready for competition, that sort of stuff. But if that's all you're doing, how are you building? That's the part,
Yeah.
How are you building where, I can see in Max's squat, he's got flat feet, he's slightly internal rotation in his hip and that sort of stuff, How are you trying to alleviate that if you're not doing any work around that? Because you're going straight from a squat to a bench and then that's sort of your session done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a thing I find very interesting too. And I look forward to having conversations with people on that because it feels very foreign to me that you're not going to build up those weak points through some like single joint exercises or like single limb exercises even, where if you're trying to fight internal rotation of the hips, like you don't just do that squatting constantly. No. And I'm sure they do some accessories, but largely it seems like, especially with primary, tertiary, secondary is how they break it up these days. Yeah. It's like squat, you got primary squat. I shouldn't talk about this because I don't really understand it. So I look forward to having those conversations with people who practice this model, but I have done high frequency programming and training before where I've squatted and benched on the same day and then deadlifted and then squatted again and then and primarily just done that and found it very hard to build up weak points. Yeah. I'm like, I've got all these issues with my squat. How do I build it up if I'm just squatting?
Yeah.
So it's interesting because it's very different. But one thing you'll see is there's very high turnover in powerlifting.
There is.
Seems to be a higher turnover in that realm.
Yes.
And I wonder if that's because of repetitive use injuries for hyper-specific work.
Yeah. I wonder if some of it's boredom too.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I've certainly had people come to me and it's not that they might have a high frequency SBD program, but they might have just a linear program that stays the same for 12 weeks. They're like, I'm bored.
Yeah.
We're just adding 1.25 kilos to everything every week. And it's like, you can't do that forever. Like,
no, you can't.
At some point it has to.
You can't.
It has to shift.
No, it's one of those things like when we get into, I was speaking before, some of my blocks will last 12 weeks. But these guys are elite that are doing that. Yeah. So if you sit down and explain to them, this is what we're working on, this is what we need to do it, they're going to be like, switch on there. Okay.
Yep.
Then there are other people that I've got that are in that intermediate, then that beginner stage or that low end of intermediate, where they'll have longer blocks than say a 4 to 6 week block. There might be 8 to 10.
Yep.
As long as you explain it right and what your plan is, and they can see that it works, they'll be all right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, buy-in's a massive part of.
Yeah.
If you're going to get progress, you have to believe that you're going to get progress from what you're doing.
Yeah.
If you start questioning it, then you're going to start failing lifts and not try. If you don't trust your coach, you can't really trust anyone.
That's right.
And you see that a lot because we've got so much information on social media.
Yes.
People are like, and especially if you do things slightly differently to other people, they'll be like, but so-and-so is doing this. And it's like, but you're not so-and-so. Like,
that's right.
What you're doing is specific to you. whether it looks similar to someone else or not is not the point. And I think personalized programming is a big thing that powerlifting with online coaching anyway is a selling point. It's like the personalized program to you, and more often than not what that turns out to be is a template that everybody's doing.
Yes.
Disguised as personalized program.
The name on it.
Yeah. So the personalized part, and I've been there where I've gotten programs from a coach that was allegedly doing personalized programming and had notes for someone else in there who was like a 75 kilo female. Yeah. I'm like, how are we doing the same stuff? I'm 120 kilos.
Yeah. And I've seen it come through with lifters that train at a gym.
Yeah. And that's like that. When you think you're paying for a personalized service, that's annoying.
Yes, that's right.
But what do you think about the whole personalized programming and online template stuff? Can you make progress?
You can to a certain point with an online template.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to a certain point, but then there's a point where that program's not going to work for your body specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah, the program generally, if it's written well as a template, will target the whole body.
Yeah.
So you're going to make some sort of progress. You're going to target all these areas. But then there's going to be a point where weaknesses show. Yeah. But then that program doesn't target those weaknesses and doesn't make you progress. And then it holds you back. That weakness will hold you back.
Yeah. Which is it's a frustrating part of the sport, because a lot of coaches turn to putting out programs and templates and stuff as a way to make money, because it's a hard business to make money in. And then they end up cultivating this templated coaching programming where people are making progress only if they're genetically gifted.
Yes.
And all the lower level people just kind of get left behind.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, well, they'll go find someone else. And inevitably they do. It's probably another templated program. But those people that are struggling to make progress are the people that need a coach the most. It's like, if you can make progress doing anything, then you're a genetic gift.
Yeah.
And great. Some point it will run out. It's just probably a hell of a lot further along than most people.
Yeah.
But if you're running into issues straight away and you just keep buying templated programs, it's probably not the way to do it.
That's right. That's where you're just not going to get it. And a lot of the templated programs, if you look at them, they're so similar. There may be a few differences in the way things are done and the way things are, but generally the bones of it are pretty similar.
Yeah. And the bones of, like, if you gave someone a pretty basic linear block for a beginner, the bones of that to what the bones of I do, or any of those templates, they're all going to look the same, because the same things.
That's right.
The same principles work. So and that's what I think those level of lifters kind of see. It's like, well, this personalized version of it's the same as this templated version. It's like, yeah, but this personalized version is the starting blocks for
that's right.
the personalized coaching that's coming.
Yeah.
Like you need to build a base, and that base is let's hit everything.
Yeah.
To a certain degree.
Yeah. And then that's where you find as a coach, you still got to have that phase where you'll learn your athlete.
Mm.
Yeah, it's not just, I know them straight away as soon as they walk in.
Oh, yeah.
You can assess them and you can find things, and then you base your program around that. Yeah, the bones are going to be the same, and then your accessory work that comes after is going to be based around them.
Yeah.
That's where the personalized start. That's where it starts. Yeah. And then as you build through that, you start finding more and more that you can work with and what you can't, and, what the limitations are more so, because what can you do in that first hour when you first start that bones? Yeah, you can't.
Yeah.
You see how they move. You're assessing them on that spot there.
Yeah.
You get 4 or 5 weeks down the track, you're like, now I can see a lot of things.
Mm.
You get 6 months down the track, you're like, I know you like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
If it's personalized.
Yeah. And then those things change too based on how strong you're getting.
That's right.
I think there's going to be some things that hang around all the time, but you might run into issues where there's a tight muscle as a result of an injury on the other side of the body or compensation, but that doesn't show itself until they're at a certain strength level.
That's right.
I tell my people all the time, like, what you need is going to change based on how strong you are.
Definitely.
So we have to, it's always an ebb and flow.
Yeah. And injuries too. Like, it's amazing what things can do. Like, even myself, I take my own training and with my shoulder and the way it was playing up, I was internally rotated. Your body does these wonderful things to protect itself, and it pulls you in, tightens up in certain areas. Have surgery. Get rid of the dead bone of the clavicle. Opens up, recover from that, which was really quick, which I was thankful for. You start working on your external rotation. external rotation improves massively because you're not bound up and in pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's all these muscles that are being tight and holding in position that are now weak and don't know how to move.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't know how to work when they're tight.
Yeah.
But when you loosen them off, they're like, well, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now that's a whole new thing of, you know, of training that you got to start implementing. New lot of exercises and stuff you got to implement. Then, you know, you don't see that until that happens. You know, so you can't have that. That's where that personalized stuff comes into it.
Yeah. I think when those people run into, like, I've had a few people come my way that have run templates and run into issues.
Yes.
And then they have to take that step back when they come
Yeah.
over because they've hurt themselves. Or like one of my biggest examples is a young lifter came to me off a 12-week template from one of the fancy deadlifters
Yes.
in America that isn't, which I find absurd that they sell programs based on what got them to where they are. It's like, this is the deadlift program that I used to lift this much. It's like, I don't know if that's going to work for
Yeah, that's right.
old mate who lifts 4 times less. But he came over and in the very first session, so it wasn't a result of anything we did.
Yes.
The first program session, he hurt himself doing a really light deadlift.
Yeah.
Because he had learned how to brace properly.
Yeah.
Hadn't learned how to get tight in the right spots because he'd just been following a template and just winging it. And then he hurt himself and had to take a massive step back because we're like, okay, now we're dealing with a significant issue and what you have to do looks a lot different now.
Yeah.
And that road back is going to be slower. Like he's young, but his beginner gains are over now.
Yes.
You've hurt yourself significantly. Now you got to claw back and put all this work in to build that base again.
Yeah.
And that's been a hard road that he's subsequently given up on.
Yeah.
So, because he's frustrated and rightfully so. But like you were saying before, it kind of weeds out the people who are really going to stick it out or not. And I sincerely hope, I no doubt he'll listen to this, but I sincerely hope he comes back to training.
Hopefully, yeah.
Like that issue is going to present itself again if he stops training now.
That's right, it will. So. And then as soon as you start back training because you want to get back into it, start following those templates again, boom, it's going to come straight back. Yeah. Because it's not addressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously you're a gym owner.
Yeah.
You own Hunter Strength Performance, the strongest gym in the Hunter. And that's where I work. And that's been a gym for 5 years now. You've been open?
2018 we opened.
Yeah.
6.
So come up, it would be 6 years.
6 years, yeah.
What inspired you to open a gym?
Well, I always wanted to open a gym since I started training. I wanted to have a gym.
Yep.
To open a powerlifting specific gym when I first started coaching was not probably what I was after at the time.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Then I moved into powerlifting. And then when it come to that point, it's like there's this massive void in the Hunter.
Yep.
Yeah, in the Hunter there was nothing. There was no competitions. There was nothing. You had some novice comps here and there around the Hunter.
Yep.
But you had to travel to Sydney. Yeah. And then this team that was building around me, like of my lifters and being like sort of it when it first started, really. There was a few, people that are in and out, but nobody that really trained any competitive lifters.
Sure.
There was nowhere for them to train, really. Like, you go to a commercial gym, you're working on, their bars, and, these people are, starting now to be squatting over 200 kilos, and those bars are, like, flapping, and, when they're walking out, and, benching on benches that are all different heights, depending on what gym you go to, and so we need to, like, bring this together. And that's sort of how it started. Yeah. Yeah.
I think those things are good for when you're establishing yourself as a lifter. It's good to be able to be flexible to non-comp specific things. Yeah. I think people are spoiled a little bit these days, but
they definitely are. Yeah.
So you're feeling a void always wanting to open a gym, but then feeling a void. That lacked in the Hunter. What are some of the biggest kind of hurdles you face when you opened?
Getting the name out there.
Yep.
Getting people through the door, which can still be a little bit of an issue now.
Yeah.
Especially with probably the level of lifter that is there. Sort of, I think, scares some people away.
Yep.
That fear of coming in and being in a gym with people like that. But then they're the most humble people that are around. Yeah.
I've had clients that have come to me who have been scared about coming to Hunter Strength.
Yeah.
And then they get there and say exactly that. Like, these people are the nicest people you'll ever meet.
Yeah. I guess the big thing, people are there for a goal, aren't they? They're there to train, have a goal, have a chat, and be mates.
Yeah.
Compared to, I guess, your commercial gyms that you sort of walk into that are, everyone's got their headphones on. Not that you can't wear headphones at our gym if you want to and that sort of stuff, but they got headphones in. They don't talk to anyone. They sit on their phone on equipment and not let anyone work in and all that sort of the commercial gym stuff.
One thing I heard about you, this is a good bit of gossip for you.
Yeah.
Was that you used to not allow phones in the gym or in your group training before Hunter Strength?
Yeah.
You had no phones, and if you got on the phone, you got growled at?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I was just sort of wanted to get in the train.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still don't want people sitting there on their phones on equipment, yeah. Taking it up. You're in there to train, you're not there to sit there 15 minutes in between sets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially accessory movements. You just don't want to be sitting there. You want to get in, train, get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. There's been a few people that are like, oh, back in the day, it was intense.
Yeah, it was when I first started, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was, I guess 10 years ago, the powerlifting was a bit more that way.
Yeah.
It's changed a bit and it's become a bit more open to everyone.
Yeah.
Compared to what it was.
Do you think that was like because of the environment of powerlifting in general? Do you think that your background in the Navy had anything to do
I probably had a big part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you a bit of a rah-rah drill sergeant?
No.
No.
No, I'm pretty laid back.
Yeah, no. Okay, see, that's like when people were like, oh, he's really intense. I'm like, I've known him for a little while now. It doesn't seem like he'd be like, I can imagine he'd get intense, but like yelling and
when
on like a drill sergeant, not really.
No, I don't do that. But I like to, especially when people step up and they want to be, or they tell me that they want to be at the top end.
Yeah.
I'm going to be on you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to be at the top, you need to put in everything you can to be at the top.
Yeah.
You can't just fluff it and get there. Yeah, you have to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people, when I've had this conversation with my own clients, it's like, I want to do this. And it's like, okay, do you realize how much work it's going to be to do that?
Yeah.
Like it's not happening in 6 months.
That's right.
This is years of progress. And it's like lofty goals are great. You have to be realistic in how long they take and what the work looks like to get
That's
there.
right.
Do you think from when you started Hunter Strength to now you've seen a big difference in how training in the gym works, or has it remained pretty consistent?
It's changed a bit, I guess, because the athletes that I had before were still that very, the way I was, like you just said, that whole, like get it done. And I've sort of relaxed off a little bit in the way that I am with that. Just purely because it doesn't need to be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was very driven in a way of like, you got to do this. And, whether that comes back from my father always being, into me, and he's like, if you want to be better, you got to be better. And you've got to, be like lift around or whatever I was doing, you have to do it with better people like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then, and as the coach, I guess I was trying to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
That top level that pushed them to get there.
Yeah. And so now that they're there, because a lot of them are there.
Yeah, now I can use other people, use the people like Max Paris, Jaden, Loz, all these top level people, and I've got other coaches there now before it was just me.
Yeah.
We can share that load and build it through so I don't need to be so full on with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting when people come because having come from Victoria, I didn't know a lot about Hunter Strength before I came. I knew the gym mainly because a bunch of the guys were training equipped.
Yeah.
So, and I follow every single equipped lifter in Australia, which is puts my follow count at about 30. But there was a good little gang for a while of you guys at the gym, including yourself because you jumped in shirt and deadlift suit for a while.
Yeah.
But that's how I knew the gym, and I didn't really know much about it otherwise. But then I come up here and it's pretty notorious in the Hunter. Like anyone, even if they haven't been, they might know about Hunter Strength Performance, and it has that air of it's not like it's not elitism at all. It's elite, and people are intimidated by that. But everybody that comes, when they come in, they're like, this is way more relaxed and way friendlier than I anticipated.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you should tell your friends that, because it's like it's an environment where people want to get better, and that's obvious. Like you got people like Tim Colton, who are the biggest cheerleader of anybody doing anything in the gym. Like I've seen him cheer people on doing body weight fucking split squats. Like, and then, you know, when he's squatting 300 kilos, everyone's up him.
Yes, that's right.
In the same way. It's very supportive, but it seems intimidating if you don't know what that support looks like. And then when you get it amongst it, it's support, it's not aggression.
That's right, yeah.
And I think anyone who comes and spends any time in the gym realises that pretty quick.
Yeah.
So that was a good thing for me to learn, having known nothing about it. I think that was kind of good, because I was like, I didn't have any preconceived notions of, like, I knew who you were as a coach, and I knew who a bunch of the lifters were, but I didn't know anything about the gym per se.
Yeah, yeah.
Other than the guys that I did know were like, it's a great gym. I'm like, cool, well, it looks like it. It's got, you know, I had come from a gym that had one mono and I was the only person that used it. The gym's got 4.
Yeah, yeah.
That are, like, in a busy period around peaks, like Nationals time.
Yeah, and they're full.
They're full, which is very cool to see, that in a gym where there's sometimes not everyone's in competition prep, but when everyone's in competition prep, everyone gets behind them. That's, I think, a really good thing to have built in a short period of time.
Yeah. It is pretty short.
Really, it is. 6 years is not very long.
No.
Really. I think people think in 12-week cycles when they get into powerlifting. They're like, I'm going to start here, and in 12 weeks I'm going to be strong. And it's the same with building a business. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
And, like, your reputation is everything. I know that we've spoken about reputation being important.
Yeah, it's huge.
How you carry yourself is how you're going to attract people in, I think. And that's something that the more I talk to people, especially your athletes, it's like your athletes are very loyal to you. They'll do anything for you because you've done anything for them. Yeah. Which I think makes a great coach. So that's a testament to, well, both you and Chrissy, actually, because it's like the guys go, well, they'd do anything for us.
Yeah.
They'd pay it right back. Yeah. And that builds a really strong community. It
does.
And like just yesterday, if you're watching this and you're going, why is this guy so red? I got sunburnt moving 2 of your athletes, actually, who are my good friends, helping them move house. And it's just that type of place. When I moved house, one of the other coaches at the gym and one of my athletes helped me move house. Yeah. We are a community there in the real sense. It's not some fake community.
That's right.
And we're going through hard times. The people that are there for you are like, you're there for your guys if they're going through trouble, or I'm there for my friends in the gym, my athletes. It's the same thing.
Then athletes are doing the same too between each other.
Yeah.
You know, they call upon each other when they need it too.
Yep.
You know, it's great.
Yeah. And that's a real community. And I think a lot of people talk about building a supportive environment, and what they look at as being supportive is just being nice and respectful of everybody's insecurities. Yeah. Whereas more often than not, a real community is kind of based around being there when it counts. Yes. And calling you on your shit. Yep. And I think 100 Strength, you'll get that. Yeah. So to lead on from Nationals prep, 100 Strength hosted Nationals last year for GPC. Yeah. Which was a 3-day event at Walls End Diggers, and we had 118 lifters, something like that actually competed. Yep. It's like 130 signed up and 118 made it.
No, it was probably more. 118 signed up, 109 made it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's better than I thought, but it was a massive event, and we're hosting it again. Yeah, you're hosting it again this year. Yeah. The gym is hosting it again this year, which is going to be again at Walls End Diggers. Yeah. In Walls End and in New South Wales, if you're listening to this from somewhere else. What ideas did you have going into Nationals that it would be like? And when you came out the other end, what was right and what was wrong?
I thought it was going to be a tough task when I first got it the first year. There were things I tried to take into account things that I'd seen previously over previous nationals.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you don't see what happens behind the scenes. You see what happens, you know, on the platform and around that you're a part of.
Yeah.
You know, so I need to get those things in place first, and then it was a matter of trying to work out, you know, the other parts behind the scenes and how it's all going to logistically work.
Yeah.
You know, it was pretty tough. Pretty stressful the first time.
Yep.
Definitely. To the point, Chris was like, I can't see how this is going to work.
Yeah.
How it's all going to come together. And then at the end, she's like, it just come together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another big reason why that happened is the community rallied.
Yes, definitely.
Like extended past the Hunter Strength community. We've got Nemesis from Dubbo. Stepped up.
Massive.
They brought a bunch of gear up, and like we're one.
Well, they did something that I've seen as an issue as an athlete and as a coach, where your warm up equipment, you had like 3 monos in the warm up room.
Yep.
Yeah. And then on the big days, you have people fighting over monos and struggle to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm like, what if we put an extra one in there? What will happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how much more calmer it made the warm up room just by having an extra mono.
Yeah.
You know, having 4 monos in there in the warm up room, different in that warm room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Warm up rooms are intense at the best of times,
Yeah.
especially at a high level. When there's enough gear for everyone to not be like, I don't want that mono, that's a shit mono, or like, I don't want it to be in the power rack. And people get antsy around comp time. They put a lot of effort in. So having enough for what they need. Yeah. It was an intense environment.
It was, yeah, definitely.
It wasn't intense on that level.
Yeah, it just calmed it down. Like you said, warm-up rooms, they are intense.
Yeah.
And, you know, to eliminate the stress, I guess is probably the best way to put it, of how am I going to get my warm-ups done in time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Calmed it down even though it's still intense.
Yeah. Especially when you've got people, you know, regularly, most of pretty much everyone who competed, even from the females up, 200, had 200 plus kilo squats on the female only day.
Yes.
And then on the male and female day, we went from, 200 plus at the low end to
400.
Yeah.
I think it was, yeah.
And then on the heavyweight day, we had pretty much started at 300.
Yeah, that's right.
And went to 410, I think the biggest squat was. It's a lot of time to warm up. And that, I think, squats are always the worst.
Oh, they're the most stressful.
Because it's all that anxiety about starting the comp, plus the anxiety of it being the biggest lift.
Yeah.
And probably the most gear intensive.
Yes.
In terms of you need to wrap knees, you need the mono changed constantly. Like it's a bit fiddly.
Yeah.
Stressful. So I think it worked really well in that regard. What things do you think you felt like you could learn to do better this year, if anything?
Just sort of some back end stuff, like organisation wise, and now those sort of dates are, like I said, I was learning with it, so I was doing things, and I'm like, oh shit, I got to do this, and I forgot that one.
Yeah,
and now I've got them all sort of like scheduled in on like when to do things and have things done by, and so then it becomes less stressful on that side of it.
Yeah.
Changing setup, like the timing setup, like trying to organise it more.
Yep.
Just things like moving stuff in, and it's all like a lot of it's back end.
Yeah.
Ways it gets displayed on the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Screens and that sort of stuff, and music and those sort of things are going to change. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, our world president Lee Marshall said, it was a very good event, one of the best nationals that he'd been to. But yet there's still stuff you can improve. So to continue on from the theme from when we started, that you're always looking to make stuff better. You can see that carry over into how nationals is. And I think it was a very well received nationals.
Yeah.
We had a massive weekend.
It was huge.
A huge weekend that took a lot out of all of us, particularly you guys.
Yeah. Landed me in hospital.
Yeah. It didn't end very well. Everyone's like at the gym, they're like, oh, Leroy and Chrissy taking the week off. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be the one who was like, oh, he's in hospital. It's not my business to say. But yeah, when you came back, but then the other thing is like after that, we put the gym back. The gym put the gym back together.
Yeah. Well, I spent a week in hospital.
Yeah.
And it was like people message me and they're like, you know, we got in contact with a few people like, we need to get the truck back. We need to, you know, all these things was fully loaded truck.
Yeah.
You know. And then we come back to the gym and it's set up just like it was when we left, when we packed, just before we packed everything up, you know, like it was back to the way it was. And that comes down to the community, you know, that nothing was a hassle, nothing, you know, people just did what needed to be done.
Yeah.
And, you know, I couldn't be more grateful for that, you know.
Well, having been there when a bit of it got done, I think I helped put one of the monos together, but the other ones got, and it wasn't like it's a powerlifting gym. We've got a lot of strongmen too.
Yeah.
And our strongmen chip in.
Yes, they do.
Big time. They're always at comps, always helping out.
Yeah, they always do. Yeah.
And vice versa, we try and help them out as much as possible. They've got a very good, loyal group that when they run comps, they're pretty onto it.
Yep.
With their own stuff. But we obviously in powerlifting, you need a bit more of a team to run the show.
Yeah.
Especially when you're running a 6-man crew on a mono. You've got 5
we need 10 people minimum to run squats.
Yeah, which proves difficult when you've got a lot of people competing.
Yeah.
So when we had something like 16 people from the gym.
We had 16 people from the gym, compete. It's massive.
So this year it'll be fine-tuning and doing well.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah, that's
it better.
That's the big thing.
Bigger and better. So when is that?
23rd to the 25th of August.
Yep. At Walls End Diggers again.
At Walls End Diggers again.
Which is a great venue if you didn't come last year.
That's amazing. You know, the people there are amazing. They helped us out heaps and nothing was ever an issue. Just go and ask and they'll try and sort something out and be on top of it. It was amazing. Yeah.
Having run around on some of the back end stuff myself, anytime I asked for anything, they were never annoyed and they were never questioning. They just said, "What do you need?"
Yep.
And went and did it. And it happened. Like you could trust it would happen. So that's
right.
That's great from a venue to put in that much effort to make things run smooth when they know that it's a hard thing to just run it.
Yeah.
So having their end be on point was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So what's next for you? What's the best way for people to get in contact with you? Are you taking on clients, that sort of stuff?
I am taking on some clients. I just finished teaching.
Yep.
Yeah. Over at Fit College. So now I've got some more time available. So yeah, I'm teaching. I'm taking on some more clients. Some face-to-face, not too many.
Yep.
Yeah, they're pretty full, but I do have some face-to-face and online. I can do some online stuff. Not huge amounts. Again, comes down to that personalised training.
Yep.
Yeah. I limit the amount of people I take, so it is personalised.
Yep.
You contact me through my Instagram page, Hunter Strength Coach.
Yep.
Start communicating there and we start the process rolling from there.
Great. And when we put this show up, we'll put all that info in the notes of the show so people can get in contact if they need to. And just one last question to finish up, which is probably the only curly one I'm going to throw at you.
Yeah.
Because I've never asked you in person outside of this, is where does wombat come from?
It comes from my time in the Navy.
Right.
Yeah. Because I'm short and
stout.
And stout, yeah. And when I'm like in full comp mode or when I was playing rugby, I was as wide as what I am tall pretty much.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, shoulders widen up.
So it's a physical reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I run low to the ground too.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you like when you hit a wombat with a car and your car gets totaled, but the wombat's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, walk away.
Well, that's all right. That's a good one. I knew of a guy named Wombat when I was growing up.
For other reasons.
And he was called Wombat because he eats roots and leaves.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've always wanted to ask that because I knew that guy. I didn't think it was for that reason, but I knew it might have been physical. But I've always wanted to ask that one. So, Leroy, thanks for coming on the very first show.
No worries.
Absolute pleasure. Great conversation. And we'll see you again soon. See you at Nationals on the 23rd, 25th of August this year at Walls End Diggers. And thanks for tuning in to the first episode of the Persistence Project.